What's up, everyone? Welcome to the channel, and today I'm going to be predicting the UFC champion of every division by the end of 2024. Starting out the Flyweight division, we have Manel Kape. I think he's going to beat Alejandro Pantoja and Brandon Moreno. I think he's going to go out here, have a very impressive performance this Saturday against Mateusz Nicolau, potentially finding the finish, which will earn him the title shot, because even if Brandon Moreno beats Amir Albazi, he still has lost to the current champ, Alejandro Pantoja, 3 times. So I think the UFC would look to make a new matchup at the top, and they have also seen that Manel Kape is a guy that has brought a lot of attention to his name at the UFC 293 press conference and in his post-fight interview. I think he is a guy that is pretty promotable for this flyweight division, has a pretty fun fighting style. If he goes out there with an impressive performance, it makes sense to book him against Alejandro Pantoja next. And I think he does beat him because he has shown some very solid takedown defense against Felipe dos Santos. Before that, he got taken down twice against David Dvorak, but it's because he was trying to get a little bit too fancy. He went for a wheel kick and then got taken down in that exchange. And then he also went for a spinning back fist, or it was an elbow, something like that, and got taken down in that exchange. I don't think he's going to be going for those type of strikes against Alejandro Pantoja, but even then, he was able to stay very defensively sound when he was on the ground against David Dvorak. Now, David Dvorak is not Alejandro Pantoja, not even anywhere close to that, but it's just something to note. I think Manel Kape will keep this fight on the feet for the most part, and I love the fact that he targets the body. There's 2 reasons why I love that. I think they will work as natural underhooks, and not only that, it's going to really wear on Alejandro Pantoja's gas tank, which is already a little bit suspect. We started to see him gas against Brandon Moreno in their most recent fight and against Brandon Royval as well. Now, did he find the grappling that he needed to against Brandon Moreno to win that championship fight? Yes. And I'm not saying he has horrible cardio. It's just when it gets later, he clearly does slow down. Now he's able to kind of dog his way through that cardio, push through. Similarly to how we see other fighters, like a Dricus du Plessis, he's having a fight coming up. Now, do I think Dricus du Plessis has 5 rounds of cardio? No. Alejandro Pantoja does. But he clearly does slow down once it gets to the later rounds, and he's going to rely on his grappling a lot heavier in those later rounds more than likely. Brandon Moreno is a guy that has 5-round cardio, which is why I don't mind picking Brandon Moreno against a guy like Alejandro Pantoja in a rematch for the 4th time, I guess. But ultimately, I do think Manel Kape's body shots will slow down Alejandro Pantoja. I love the fact that he has a granite chin, and on the feet, a lot of Alejandro Pantoja's threat comes from his very solid power. I don't think he's going to be able to knock down Manel Kape, who has not been knocked down or knocked out in the UFC once yet. And on his regional career, I don't believe he's been knocked out either. I don't think he's been knocked down, but I'm not entirely sure. I have to double check that. But ultimately, Manel Kape has a granite chin, and he's a very solid counter striker. And a guy like Alejandro Pantoja that's going to pressure him on the feet, I do think will walk into some nice counters and will get just eaten up on the body. I love that Manel Kape has really made the transition in his MMA career to target the body a lot more. So ultimately, I think Manel could find a late KO. I do like the fact that he showed 3 solid rounds of cardio against Felipe dos Santos and looked pretty fresh afterwards. That was a very high pace. Some people say, well, he got hit way too much for a guy that took that on short notice and wasn't even in the UFC before. I think Felipe dos Santos is number 1 pretty good. But second off, if he watches interviews, he broke his rib that fight week, which there is no way that can really help him going into that matchup. I do think he's shown pretty solid counters. I do think he has the ability to land some very solid body shots against Alejandro Pantoja, slowing him down and just stuffing a majority of the takedowns. Can Alejandro Pantoja take him down and backpack him, potentially finding the submission? Absolutely. This is a very slight lean, but I do think he'll then take on Brandon Moreno after Brandon Moreno beats Amir Albazi. I do feel pretty confident in that pick. Now Amir Albazi can win, he can be in the mix, but if Manel Kape is going out there and beating guys like Alejandro Pantoja and turning around, I think he would be able to beat a guy like Amir Albazi, who in my opinion pretty clearly lost to Kai Kara-France. Was a close fight, but I do think Kai Kara-France did win that fight. Anyways, I think Moreno wins that fight. Will turn around and fight Manel Kape towards the end of 2024. I don't see 3 title fights being able to happen in this division, unfortunately. So I do think Manel Kape will close out the year by defending against Brandon Moreno, who will pressure him. And Manel Kape will be able to stop the takedowns coming his way, will rip to the body, and will be better off the back foot than some of other opponents of Brandon Moreno. And a big, criticism I have of Brandon Moreno and his striking style is he gets hit sometimes, and he doesn't have the chin to do that, because we saw against Deiveson Figueiredo, and then we saw a little bit against Alejandro Pantoja, is he'll land the more strikes, and he'll get caught with the good one, and then boom, he sat down, he gets knocked down, takes a knee, and that's why he loses these rounds. I do think he might be, winning a majority of the fight against Manel Kape, but Manel Kape will find the counters to potentially sit down a guy like Brandon Moreno and either knock him out or beat him by decision. I would pick Manel Kape by decision as of now. Moving on to the Bantamweight division, I'll be picking Merab Dvalishvili here. I think he's going to beat Henry Cejudo. It's looking like it's going to be 5 rounds as the co-main event of UFC 298, but even if that's not the case, I probably will end up picking him in 3 rounds. Henry Cejudo is a guy that's 37 years old, probably isn't going to be making any massive improvements, although he does have some solid takedown defense and the better striking. Merab has such great cardio and a very solid chin and some good chin recovery to pair with it that I think he's going to beat damn near everyone in the division. I think he beats Henry Cejudo by decision, and based off of his last 3 wins, although Jan and Henry Cejudo, he will deserve the next title shot. I know people will argue Corey Sandhagen, and the UFC will try to push Corey Sandhagen. Eventually, they're going to have to give Merab Dvalishvili a title shot in 2024, and I think he beats Corey Sandhagen, Sean O'Malley, or even Marlon Vera. Those are the 3 guys I really see fighting for the title outside of Merab Dvalishvili. Moving on to the featherweight division, I'm going to be picking Ilia Topuria. Right now, I'm leaning towards him against Alexander Volkanovski, and if he beats Volk the way that I think he will beat Volk, I know for a fact I'm going to be predicting him over Max Holloway and over Movsar Evloev. I would mention Arnold Allen here, but if Arnold Allen goes out there and beats Movsar Evloev, I think Max Holloway is more deserving, seeing that Max Holloway did beat Arnold Allen. So I think the 3 people, or the 4 people I would say that are kind of in running here are Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway, and Movsar Evloev, along with Ilia Topuria. If Ilia Topuria beats Volk, we could also see an immediate rematch, and then in the meantime, maybe Max Holloway versus the winner of Evloev versus Allen, if it is Evloev, or maybe Max Holloway versus Josh Emmett, something like that. But I do think Ilia Topuria would beat Volk, and then from there, I would predict him to beat anyone else in the featherweight division. I probably am going to pick Ilia Topuria by KO. He could find the submission after he hurts Volk early, and also I could see him by decision now that we have seen that he has 5-round cardio against Josh Emmett, and he looked pretty solid off the back foot. I just think he's younger, and Alexander Volkanovski has some, struggles against a power puncher like Chad Mendes, who had some solid grappling to his name. I think Ilia Topuria has a very solid grappling game as well. He's got some nice submissions, some solid wrestling. Did he get taken down multiple times against Bryce Mitchell and look very, in my opinion, sloppy and just chasing the finish way too much in that fight? Yes, he overextended on a lot of hooks, but I was really impressed in his most recent performance against Josh Emmett. He's got a great chin as well. I don't like the fact that, he has a stance that is very open to getting leg kicked. I could see Volk very easily winning this fight, and I'm not super set that I'm going to be predicting Ilia Topuria to win that fight. But as of now, I'm leaning towards Ilia Topuria, and I'm going to have to predict him to be champion by the end of 2024. Moving on to the lightweight division, I'm going to be predicting Islam Makhachev to stay as champion. I think there are 4 potential fighters in the running for title shots in 2024, and I think Islam Makhachev beats all of them. Those 4 are Charles Oliveira and Arman Tsarukyan. The winner of that is guaranteed to get a title shot. I'm leaning towards Charles Oliveira right now, and then outside of that, it's Justin Gaethje and Benoit Saint-Denis. I think Benoit Saint-Denis, if he goes out there and beats Poirier, may be scheduled to turn around and fight Justin Gaethje for a title elimination bout. And regardless, I think Islam Makhachev would beat Benoit Saint-Denis and Justin Gaethje and Charles Oliveira and Arman Tsarukyan because he's a very solid striker, very defensively sound, and has developed a style that works very well with his striking. His grappling complements his striking. He's very good at finding takedowns within striking exchanges off the back foot. He's very good with his counters and is very defensively sound. And overall, I don't think these fighters have the skills or the styles to beat Islam Makhachev, so I think he will remain champion here. And we might only see 1 to 2 title defenses here because Islam Makhachev seemingly is injured and according to Dana White is out until the summer, unfortunately. Moving on to the welterweight division, I'm going to be picking Shavkat Rakhmonov here. Originally, I leaned toward the Leon Edwards side. I recently released a video talking about how good I thought Shavkat Rakhmonov is, matching him up against the top 10 of the lightweight division, the welterweight division, and I predicted him to beat everybody but Leon Edwards. And since releasing that video, I've kind of changed my mind a little bit. I'm not set that I'm going to pick Shavkat Rakhmonov or Leon Edwards. I'm 50-50 on it right now. I can't really make a prediction, but I kind of thought about it a little bit more, and a factor that I didn't really include was that Shavkat Rakhmonov going to his title shot is probably going to be more active than Leon Edwards. The reason being, Leon Edwards is going to be fighting Bilal Muhammad at UFC 300. And then from there, I think he's going to have to wait out some time in order to find his next title challenger because Shavkat is going to have to fight the winner of JDM versus Gilbert Burns, in my opinion. And then they're going to have to turn around, and that will take some time. So it might take Leon Edwards another 7 months since the Bilal Muhammad fight to go into a title fight against Shavkat Rakhmonov, because Shavkat's going to have one fight in the meantime, if that makes sense. So timing-wise, Shavkat's going to be more active going into his title shot. And I did say in that video that Leon probably would have the advantage in the clinch or be able to nullify the clinch from Shavkat Rakhmonov. And then I rewatched the Jeff Neal fight a couple more times. And then Shavkat Rakhmonov's clinch is so damn nasty. He's got some very powerful knees, and there's no takedown threat from a guy like Leon Edwards. So ultimately, I do think he has the advantage in the clinch. He's very powerful, has a very solid chin. But I do think Leon Edwards presents a style that we haven't seen Shavkat Rakhmonov deal with, and a very tough stylistic matchup for him if Leon Edwards is able to stuff the takedowns, which I think is a very, very possible scenario. But ultimately, I'm going to have to go with the guy that is fighting towards the end of the year for the title, because when I look at Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad, I give Leon probably a 60 to 65% chance to beat Bilal Muhammad, but I'll say 60% chance because I think Bilal is very underrated and a lot of people are overlooking him, and regardless, I think he's made massive improvements, is probably juicing up, but I do think he has a style that can beat Leon Edwards and present issues that Colby Covington wasn't able to present. And then when I look at Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Jack Della Maddalena and JDM, whoever wins that fight, regardless, I think in the worst case scenario, I'm giving Shavkat Rakhmonov a 65% chance. Likely a higher percentage chance. But if Gilbert Burns ends up beating Jack Della Maddalena, it will be above 65% chance. If Jack Della Maddalena shows us a very great part to his game, knocks out Gilbert Burns, looks fantastic while doing it, then I'd probably say a 65% chance for Shavkat Rakhmonov to win that fight. And if you know anything about statistics, statistically, I'm going to be predicting Shavkat Rakhmonov to become champ by the end of 2024, given the statistics I've given you. But anyways, I think Shavkat's good. He'll be more active going into the title shot more than likely. Moving on to the middleweight division, I'm going to be taking Khamzat Chimaev here. Look, I can understand a Dricus du Plessis or Sean Strickland pick or even Israel Adesanya, but ultimately I do think Khamzat Chimaev has the tools to beat any of those guys. I would predict him against Israel Adesanya and the winner of Sean Strickland or Dricus du Plessis, regardless of who it is. I think he's the best grappler in the division, and he proved that against Kamaru Usman. I know that he gassed, but I think his one round of cardio is going to be enough to finish these guys. When it comes to Israel Adesanya, we have seen him get taken down by Marvin Vettori, get taken down by Robert Whittaker. And if you're getting taken down by those guys, when Khamzat Chimaev takes you down, he's going to latch in the hooks, he's going to put you in a body triangle, put you in a very bad position where you could end up getting finished. And ultimately, I do see that happening. Marvin Vettori was in a very solid position against Israel Adesanya, potentially finding the rear naked choke, threatening it. And then Israel Adesanya turns out of it because Marvin Vettori failed to make the correct adjustment. Not that Israel Adesanya sucks. I just do think that Khamzat Chimaev will find himself in that position, and he is not going to allow Israel Adesanya to turn into the body triangle and reverse the position. I think Khamzat Chimaev potentially TKOs him or finds that submission. And then against Sean Strickland, Abus Magomedov took him down and found the back against Sean Strickland. Did he get it in any hooks? No. But if that's Khamzat Chimaev, I firmly do believe that he ends up taking that back, latching in the hooks, potentially finding the submission or TKO. I'd pick him by TKO against Sean Strickland because Sean Strickland has shown some pretty solid submission defense, and it is a BJJ black belt. And also, I have heard in sparring through multiple interviews that Khamzat Chimaev has gotten the better of Sean Strickland on the ground. Now, I know it's one round of cardio. Sean Strickland has very solid cardio and can't beat him late. That's how it is with every single Khamzat Chimaev fight. I just think he's so good in one round, especially with the healed hand, that I think he will finish these guys. And then against Dricus du Plessis, I know Dricus is good, super physically imposing, but we have seen him get taken down by Derek Brunson. We've seen him make big errors when it comes to his takedowns against Brad Tavares. And that's not the main reason. We've also seen him get taken down by Robert Whittaker in the first round. I just don't see any of these guys being able to stuff the takedowns from Khamzat Chimaev, who is very good chain wrestling. He has some nice throws. He's got some solid jiu-jitsu, some great submissions, and overall just a very, very dominant and threatening guy when he is on top of you. I think he's probably got a round and a half to 2 rounds of solid cardio. And I do think since it is in 5 rounds, I'm assuming that these are fights for the title, that he will push much heavier for the finish. And his coach will tell him, look, Khamzat, who cares about the decision? We can't get the decision in a 5-round fight. He's going to push that much harder for a finish in a 5-round fight. So ultimately, I do think he finishes them all in the first round. I can't be that confident in it, though, simply because his cardio sucks. And if it goes out of 2 rounds, I think he loses. I think a lot of people will tell you that. Although it would be very interesting to see him versus Dricus du Plessis. If they both survive and gas out, that would be a very interesting title fight to watch in the later rounds. But ultimately, I do think he beats everyone. I think him versus Israel Adesanya may be next, or the UFC might somehow not justify, but they might somehow give him the next title shot, because that's what they said after UFC 290. But I ultimately do think, or 294, excuse me. But I ultimately do think they could look to do him versus Adesanya next at UFC 300, or they could look to do him versus Jared Cannonier. And I do think he wins both of those matchups. Finishes them in the first round. I know it's kind of a very, not a bold prediction, but just a prediction that relies on a very certain game plan to succeed. But ultimately, I do think he is such good wrestling, is very quick, very athletic, and has the athletic tools to succeed in the first round and find the finishes. But yeah, by no means am I very confident that Khamzat Chimaev will become champ. Moving on to the light heavyweight division. I'm going with Magomed Ankalaev. I have to. I do think I do. Because I was thinking, if he beats Johnny Walker, he might not get the title shot. But then I thought about it. Well, if Yuri goes out there and beats Rakic, he just lost to Alex Pereira. And then Alexander Rakic, if he beats Yuri Prohaska, it's probably going to be boring. He's probably going to find takedowns or make it very, very technical. And from there, ultimately, lost my voice there for a second. And from there, I don't think the UFC will want to give him a title shot either. And Alex Pereira has already called out Magomed Ankalaev. He said he wants to fight Magomed Ankalaev next. I don't think that they're going to make that happen right now, obviously, because he is fighting Johnny Walker. But if he goes through and beats Johnny Walker, the way that I think he's going to beat Johnny Walker, I think he's going to work in the takedowns early and then eventually find the TKO a little bit later. He'll have success on the ground, maybe even knock him out on the feet. Johnny Walker doesn't have the greatest chin, and Magomed Ankalaev does have some power. I think he'll find the TKO. I'm predicting TKO round 4. I'll have my official full card predictions out in the next couple of days. I'm just kind of, rewatching some film on the prelim, guys, to get those predictions set. But for now, it's going to be Magomed Ankalaev round 4 KO. And I do think if he finds a finish and Alex Pereira calls him out after he beats Jamal Hill, which I do believe will happen, I do think that the UFC will grant Alex Pereira his wish. I would pick Magomed Ankalaev. A very slight lean over Alex Pereira because Magomed Ankalaev has very bad leg kick defense, and Alex Pereira has the most powerful and the best leg kicks in the entire UFC, in my opinion. Maybe not the most powerful because obviously there are some very powerful heavyweights. But I do think Magomed Ankalaev would beat Alex Pereira, and he will beat Johnny Walker. So I think he'll be the champ by the end of 2024. Moving on to the heavyweight division, I'm going to be predicting Tom Aspinall to become champion. He's not technically champion right now. He's the interim champ, but I do think Jon Jones will fight Stipe Miocic and then retire. If he wins, he retires. If not, maybe they somehow have a rematch clause in this Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic too. I don't want to see that. I don't think that happens. Ultimately, I think regardless, the winner of that will retire. Both of them probably will retire after that, making Tom Aspinall the real champion. And I do think Tom Aspinall will beat both of those guys if that fight does end up playing out. And then I do think out of all the title challengers potentially in 2024 for Tom Aspinall, he beats them all. He beats Cyril Gane, in my opinion, Jailton Almeida, Curtis Blades, Sergey Pavlovich in a rematch. He's got super powerful hands. BJJ black belt, shown some pretty solid submissions, some pretty solid offensive wrestling. Ultimately, I think Tom Aspinall may become the heavyweight GOAT. So yeah, that's going to conclude this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.